The Partition of India in 1947 stands as one of the most significant and tumultuous events in modern history, marking the end of British colonial rule in the Indian subcontinent and the birth of two independent nations, India and Pakistan. This monumental event was not just a political division, but also a deeply emotional and traumatic experience for millions of people, reshaping the cultural, social, and geographical landscape of the region forever. The partition was driven by a complex interplay of political, religious, and social factors, and its consequences continue to reverberate across South Asia even today. To truly understand the partition, we must delve into its historical context, the key players involved, the events that led to the division, and the profound human suffering that accompanied it. The roots of the partition can be traced back to the long history of British colonialism in India. The British East India Company began establishing its presence in India in the early 17th century. And by the mid-19th century, the British Crown had taken direct control of the subcontinent. Over the years, the British implemented policies that often exacerbated existing tensions between India's diverse religious communities, particularly between Hindus and Muslims. The British policy of divide and rule sowed seeds of discord, creating a sense of competition and mistrust between the two communities. This strategy was not accidental. It was a deliberate attempt to weaken the growing Indian independence movement by pitting different groups against each other. By the early 20th century, the demand for independence from British rule had gained significant momentum. The Indian National Congress, INC, founded in 1885, emerged as the leading voice of the independence movement. Initially, the INC represented a broad spectrum of Indians, including Hindus, Muslims, and other religious groups. However, as the movement progressed, differences began to emerge, particularly between the Hindu majority leadership of the INC and the Muslim minority, which felt increasingly marginalized. This growing divide led to the formation of the All India Muslim League in 1906, a political party dedicated to protecting the rights and interests of Muslims in India. The idea of a separate Muslim state began to take shape in the 1930s, largely due to the efforts of Muhammad Ali Jinnah, the leader of the Muslim League. Jinnah, who was initially a member of the INC and a staunch advocate for Hindu-Muslim unity, became disillusioned with the Congress's leadership, which he believed was not adequately addressing the concerns of Muslims. Jinnah argued that Muslims and Hindus were distinct nations with their own customs, traditions, and ways of life, and therefore they could not coexist in a single state. This idea, known as the two-nation theory, became the foundation for the demand for Pakistan, a separate homeland for Muslims. The demand for Pakistan gained traction during the 1940s, particularly after the failure of the Cabinet Mission Plan in 1946, which had proposed a united India with a decentralized federal structure. The Muslim League rejected the plan, insisting on the creation of Pakistan. Meanwhile, the INC, under the leadership of figures like Mahatma Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru, continued to advocate for a united India. The political deadlock between the two parties, combined with rising communal tensions, led to widespread violence between Hindus and Muslims, particularly in regions like Bengal and Punjab. The situation reached a boiling point in 1947, when the British government, exhausted by World War II and facing increasing pressure from the Indian independence movement, decided to withdraw from India. The last Viceroy of India, Lord Louis Mountbatten, was tasked with overseeing the transition to independence. Mountbatten initially hoped to preserve a united India, but soon realized that the political and communal divisions were too deep to overcome. On June 3, 1947, he announced the Partition Plan, which proposed the creation of two independent dominions, India and Pakistan. The plan was accepted by both the Indian National Congress and the Muslim League, and the date for independence was set for August 15, 1947. The partition was not just a political division, it was also a geographical one. The British tasked Sir Cyril Radcliffe, a lawyer with no prior knowledge of India, with drawing the boundaries between the two new nations. Radcliffe's task was incredibly challenging, as he had to divide regions with mixed populations of Hindus, Muslims, and Sikhs. The boundaries he drew, known as the Radcliffe Line, were announced just 2 days after independence, leading to widespread confusion and chaos. The division was particularly brutal in the provinces of Punjab and Bengal, which were split between India and Pakistan. Millions of people found themselves on the wrong side of the border, leading to one of the largest and most violent migrations in human history. The human cost of the partition was staggering. As the boundaries were announced, communal violence erupted on an unprecedented scale. Hindus and Sikhs in Pakistan fled to India, while Muslims in India fled to Pakistan. Trains carrying refugees were attacked, villages were burned, and families were torn apart. Women were particularly vulnerable, with many being abducted, raped, or killed. Estimates suggest that between 200,000 and 2 million people lost their lives during the partition, and around 14 million were displaced. The trauma of the partition left deep scars on the collective memory of both nations, and its legacy continues to shape the relationship between India and Pakistan to this day. The partition also had significant political and economic consequences. The division of assets between India and Pakistan was a contentious issue, with disputes over everything from military equipment to financial reserves. The princely states, which were nominally independent under British rule, were given the choice to join either India or Pakistan. Most princely states acceded to one of the two nations, but the decision of Jammu and Kashmir, a predominantly Muslim region with a Hindu ruler, led to a protracted conflict that remains unresolved. The partition also disrupted trade and economic ties, leading to economic instability in both countries. Despite the immense challenges, both India and Pakistan embarked on the journey of nation-building. India adopted a democratic constitution in 1950, becoming a secular republic with a commitment to pluralism and diversity. Pakistan, on the other hand, struggled with political instability and eventually split into two nations in 1971, when East Pakistan became the independent country of Bangladesh. The partition also had a profound impact on the cultural and social fabric of the region. The migration of millions of people led to the exchange of languages, traditions, and cuisines, enriching the cultural heritage of both nations. However, the wounds of the partition have yet to fully heal, and the relationship between India and Pakistan remains fraught with tension and conflict. The Partition of India in 1947 is a stark reminder of the complexities and consequences of colonialism, nationalism, and identity politics. It is a story of hope and despair, of freedom and loss, and of the resilience of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable adversity. As we reflect on this pivotal moment in history, it is essential to remember the lessons of the past and strive for a future marked by peace, understanding, and cooperation. If you found this exploration of the partition insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into history's most defining moments. Let's continue to learn from the past to build a better future together.